the idea of making it humane, sustainable, and timeless. Technology versus nature, indoors versus outdoors. कि आजकल फॉग चल रहा है, हमारा जमाना ये है, I-14. History as a dead tradition, tradition as a living history, and that's why change time as well as change value system of the generations. But the first pluralism is that you are the designer of every bite. आर्किटेक्ट लोग बहुत क्रिएटिव होते हैं. देखो यहाँ पर डोर नहीं था, फिर भी ये उनके ही दिमाग में आता है. Left is that for a hot beverage. So it's crimpled paper. Mera kitna taka. Every time we put on the light, we have to put a coin. Then we become very wrong. Technology is a tool, as we've been saying, all as a tool, it can be great. That's the whole kind of idea. So it's never about akar, and don't get fancied by that. It's very simple that what's cool in summer, what's hot in winter. Insulation must go with ventilation because all of us are, however cool we are, beautiful aesthetic. Ahmedabad has been recognized by that. That was the kind of devastation 26 January 2001. Okay, namaskar, very good afternoon. मेरे दोनों हाथ बंधे हैं. I'm wired. So the basic kind of biases of what I'm going to sharing with you as a point of view are about that what is the obligation of an architect when we design. It's about designing for place, people and planet, and what is the criteria for what we are designing for a holistic architecture. The idea of making it humane, sustainable, and timeless. So that's the kind of a goal with which we need to work. I believe that that history, the time frame that we have been all the time referring, BC and AD, we could now change to BC and AC, before Corona and after Corona, because I believe there is a paradigm shift in people's mindset. We understood a lot of useful values or meaning of our existence. We understood that there are two principles. We are a microcosm of nature. We were trying to harness nature, but we understood frugality, humility, multiplicity, flexibility, etc., etc. And fundamentally, these two principles of any existence or any harmony, human to human, which we call society, and human to nature, which we are an aspect of. So as long as things relate to that, and that's where it also gave us hope. Apart from many bad things that may have happened, it also gave hope that we thought we are too many people on this planet and nothing can be changed. But it taught us that just few undue system gone out of the way, the nature, the earth could correct itself. Nobody knew that Delhi air can be cleaner, etc., etc. The most important, we understood, we had a debate. We had all our iPads and these Zooms and whatnot, but we understood that meeting someone in person could not be substituted by Zoom. Okay, so not that one was bad, it was a good tool, but it could not replace what the natural kind of instincts were. So we understood technology versus nature, indoors versus outdoors. And that's where I think that question that all this while in the name of smart, what were we referring to? If we call this to be the idea of a smart city, have our cities all along been dumb? Was our morning walk a futile exercise only to reminisce past, or there was something to learn, or they were all lived in? That's something we forget. Is tradition anti-modernity? Modernity we know, but when we say tradition in our mindset, do we have to think as opposite of tradition? Is this the face of new India, and does this show growth or the progress? And is West the best? Where is this coming from? Yesterday I did show some of this. It's everywhere from wherever, and you would very innocently accept that Croatia is Croatia. I could have just fooled around whatever name that came to my mind and it would still work. I wouldn't go wrong. Back home, the same thing, and from here, Rajasthan versus Mumbai versus Calcutta, both we need to make our mind which is appropriate, which is right, and which we should be looking for. As I said yesterday, there's a difference between image and identity. Image, what we want others to see us as, well, identity, who actually we are. So that's where yesterday I was beginning to elucidate on this concept that who we are. And that's where if we try and understand our context largely as India in which we operate, for one, we need to get out of this mindset that when we say tradition, then anti-modernity. History and tradition are two distinct things, and to me, not a synonym as the Wikipedia or as the kind of dictionary would say. To me, they are actually the opposite. Something that is obsolete for the changed time and circumstance, it dies its own death, and that's a forgotten past. That's a fossilized history. And young friends who actually swear by कि आजकल फॉग चल रहा है, हमारा जमाना ये है, i14. But we all know by the time we actually can afford i14, there's i16 in the market. So actually we swear by technology, but that's the first to get passé as against culture, tradition, which may have been, all the traditions that we follow, festivities that we follow, our great-grandfathers were also there, doing that. So history as a dead tradition, tradition as a living history, and that's why we see this simultaneity or coexistence of our moorings for the past and aspirations for tomorrow. They coexist to create reality of today. That's why we live simultaneously in 3 time zones. I mean, Rajasthan, we see it all along. But of all, even 7th largest city, the Ahmedabad also. And Ahmedabad has also its own character. You look at this picture. It's from street of Ahmedabad. It's not stage set. It says Australia calling. It wants you to be a global citizen. That be in the globe, higher education, go to Australia. But very Ahmedabadi, miser, cheap and economical way of advertising that on few thousand rupee camel cart that moves around and does the same. What is the ethos of our context? There is identity not dissolved, so respected. Many cultures respect identity, but there is an added overlay of collective conformity. Pluralism is the mainstay, and as an architect, why are we discussing this? How do we create a single resolution that works for now, for later, like we've been going to century-old monuments and it still excites us? And not only that, but change time as well as change value system of the generations, okay? So pluralism through belief system. I'm not getting into politics or religion, but the way, if I say single truth, there'll be never a chance two people will agree. If I say my father was the greatest, I don't think I'll go alive out of this door, and why should I? What's wrong with everyone else's? But if every child thinks that their parents are the supermen and superwomen's heroes, there is no conflict, and that illusion would take him through the childhood. So where you reach is more important rather than who takes you there. So that idea of multiple truth, as many people, as many God. And that's why in the temple, Garbhu is so dark. That form of an idol is just a nimit, it's an excuse. What you create with your mental picture is the God in front of you. That's why each one can relate it in their own way. That's a fantastic pluralism of that existence. Same with attire. 6-yard sari, a same cloth can be worn as differently and can look different on all body contours, So sort of multiple ways that's him. And my favorite, the thali. It's not the ingredients, but it's the concept of combination meal, okay? Let's take pizza. You're given the choices of the crust, of the topping. Once you choose that, once it's cooked, first bite takes the same as the next, tastes the same as the last, and you eat the same pizza as I do, we can compare the experience of food alike. Turn it to the idea of thali. Thali is combination meal. Every ingredient is completely cooked. But the first pluralism is that you are the designer of every bite. Every bite is a unique combination. First bite need not taste the same as the next, need not taste the same as the last. And you eat the same thali as I do, we cannot compare the experience of food alike because my sequence may be different, my proportion may be different, my combination may be different. So fantastic idea. And that's why the design of a thali, it's glossy, it's crunchy, it's blend, it's pungent, it's liquid, it's solid, it's sour, and in Gujarat we have even sweet. So you can every time infinitely make the taste, and each one can relate in their way. If I can't eat spicy, Mr. Karl would have more rice and little pickle, while I'll have reverse proportion, So that's the kind of idea about that pluralism. And in architecture, we need that thali kind of an idea. How do you allow the person, the perceiver, to be involved in the process so that he feels his own, That's why design is not about finding one answer to one question. It's about asking many questions, finding many answers to each question, and then picking one answer that answers most questions. So it's about discretion, about values, and you add values through design. And the whole discretion is about what? Ability to discern between appropriate and inappropriate. Appropriate to what? Place, people, and planet. That's why I say doctor has to diagnose, not decide that 19th patient would be typhoid and 23rd, or aajkal bahut viral wale nahi aaye hai, If that is the idea of holistic design, does that make up for that? That to me, it's a too quick, too singular, and too literal idea that if child is dirtying the attire while crawling along the floor, uska attire mop bana do, wherever he'll go, he'll clean the floor, A lot of these are one question, one answer games. Your shoe is more expensive to be protected, and lipstick, it is a shringar, it's a poetry, it should be so personal, but for that, if you have to have a template, control all delete through one stroke, and you need to have hot noodles, but it's kind of getting late, so the fan is built in. And as architect, we're not necessarily too behind, But to the friends, don't worry about making blunders, because our reputation precedes us. Ye developer ko neend nahi aayi hogi, but then the whole image, आर्किटेक्ट लोग बहुत क्रिएटिव होते हैं. देखो यहाँ पर डोर नहीं था, फिर भी ये उनके ही दिमाग में आता है, अरे यार वो ड्राफ्ट्समैन तो गलती कर दी है यार. And so don't worry, everything has a solution. You can add value. So function is obvious, as yesterday we were debating, but what is the value that you add? Is it humor? Is it beauty? Is it satire? Is it economy? Is it environment? I find one of the best design, and first semester we've been all taught anthropometric, and we did this bubble diagram. I think that's best personified in the airplane toilet. And if you are allowed, you can even take shower here, or of course change babies' diapers and everything. So any design has to involve, inform, and inspire. And I love the sense of design from the Indigo. This is one example I want to show. In same trolley, there are 3 kinds of cups. The one on the extreme right is for water. So larger, less thick, a kind of paper, but it still tells you stay hydrated. It's always good in a flight to be hydrated. The middle one is where you ask for a soft drink. And you see there are puzzles. There are 3 statements written. One of them is false. So it engages you. Okay, and also simultaneously informs you. And the one on the extreme left is that for a hot beverage. So it's crimpled paper, so you can not go wrong by crushing it, and it doesn't give accident, and it also gives little insulation, So it could have been any just cup that you could have just picked up. They would have saved on printing also, but I think it just engages you. It informs, it involves, and it inspires. Even our very personal design can be that. For example, we soon are going to, you all welcome to Gujarat to have Navaratri celebration, And that's where this backless choli and the machos go obbling over the backs of the, whoever. So, ये थोड़ा इस तरह का टाटू हो तो ये ना उसको आई चेक दो कि बेटा चौथी लाइन नहीं पढ़ सकता, नीचे देखी मत, पहले जाके ऑप्टिमेट्रेशन पास जाके अपने नंबर निकाल. और ये करते करते तेरा ये मेट्रो तो गया, अभी दूसरा स्टेशन ये बाकी है, ये जब एक्टर लोग ये आर के पहले था, के रब करके ए बनाने का आ गया, तो आई वंडर के ये वाले टाटूस का क्या होता होगा, Instead, we are all architect. And, when Mr. Doshi went to meet Corbusier, he was working and he said, I'm putting a school up. And he said, what are you going to teach? And Doshi said, history, this. He said, no. He put up a scale and says, you should teach your students this. That was his idea. So, ये टाटू अगर स्केल की तरह होता तो काफ़ी काम में आता था ना, हमारे साइट पर जाते जो भी करते, और और when I grew up, this was a very accepted measure of 1 yard. Cloth was always given like this. You never argued कि भी थोड़ा कम दो, घी थोड़ा ज़्यादा डालो, Yes, it was a different story कि अहमदाबादी shrewd बनिया businessman वो नेपाली को काउंटर पर रखेंगे तो उसका यार keyboard is a keyboard, but function is not to be questioned. But what value do you want? Is it a flexibility of a form? Is it three-dimensional contouring? Is it waterproof? Is it cheap? Is it kind of, foldable, etc., etc.? Like this is a switch. When you keep it on, it just makes a frowning face, from welcoming to... So just to remind you, have you not put it for much longer? We don't understand this subtlety in Gujarat. So for us, there's a special range. Mera kitna taka. Every time we put on the light, we have to put a coin. Then we become very romantic. आज तो full moon day, आज electricity नहीं use करेंगे. Let's go and eat in the moon, और ये England के पट्टा वाले नहीं होते. तो you put your hat and light comes off and then you take it away and it goes off. And maybe this is romantic French that whispers, "Can I turn you on?" We believe in avatars, have our products. By the time we receive many of these from Amazon, it's just already gone bad. Can we not think of a design that is also valid for the next avatar, Like this was way back, Heineken beer, and they created this bottle in 70s, which was called Wobo, world bottle. Instead of round, they made it squarish with serration so that it can become a brick in the wall. So once you go high in spirits, the wall can झूमने लगती है बात में, Technology is a tool, as we've been saying, all as a tool, it can be great. If I have to refrigerate medicine while crossing around the desert, solar, installation is not an antithesis. So all that sustainability, whatever, is just a contextual adjustment for the most out of the least. Left hand side is something like LEED or IGBC sort of. Any like laptop, but if I add a bamboo layer on top, I call it a green laptop, This is Mr. Wally Broecker, the same scientist that coined the term global warming, is doing $1 million project to making tree-like installation, maybe for quality of air or whatever. Could natural planting of trees not do that at no cost? What we need a solution like this, that this child, you can see they're very happy taking turn to rotate this wheel, which is mechanically connected to the first aquifer, and by that it's lifting water onto the overhead tank, so you get gravity rest of the time. I think the answers need to be like that, and that's why we need to develop norms and standards which are rooted in the place, as well as understand not only realities but also reveries. If we blindlessly copy, we end up into this disaster, Even if you need it, you don't have to put it on computer on the truck. So if we mindlessly copy from a single source, that's plagiarism, that's for the students, that's copy. But if you smartly copy from 100 sources, you often get PhD. So any design must cater to or go through the 6 fundamental factors of performance, Timeless aesthetics, socio-cultural appropriateness, environmental management or sustainability, functional efficiency, economic affordability, and structural strength. When you answer all that, that's your... So just one example for timeless aesthetics, as we said, that it's not just we are romanticizing the past, but to me, this comes across as the full, complete, holistic architecture. This is Stepwell near Ahmedabad. This is the kind of graphic we have developed to understand, like miniature painting from here. It never said building in isolation. It created a context. You understood the mood and mahal of each courtyard being differently used in case of city palace, etc. This plan will fail most of the student. No imagination. There should be some tension, etc. But what we forget is how it narrates itself. It's a wonderful engineering that you're tapping the water from first aquifer in a hot, dry climate. There's no water source, no river. So you're still having the life sustaining out of this water. So small hole, so it would not lose by evaporation. And you go to the water. Now, when you go to the water, that sliced earth might cave in. So you have shoring and strutting by way of that frame. That's a narrative for engineers. How does it represent itself? Architecture is a journey, and along the journey, there is this narrative, the way it presents itself. So from middle of nowhere, you see this outcrop of stone and few steps. Look at this. To go down, you're made to climb up. But here you know nothing about what's coming. The moment you take first step, the void is revealed to you. So that was the engagement, that was a curiosity and the reward of having taken extra step, that you understood this nuance. Now don't forget the light. The nature also plays its part. It's most dynamic. So now you know this is a visual focus. You go up to that, and when you come there, three sides are inclined steps and you get this fantastic panoramic view. It tells me I'm so deep, as well as this is the welcoming gesture. Welcome to my precinct, sort, Now, you're not a crow to fly. So that architectural element called stair does the wonders. Every platform that you descend, your like thali bite experience is different. Like at the first platform, it looks like Rajasthan tall parapet terraces, that you can see the sky, you still have some enclosure, it's still bright. And if you are in center, it's symmetric composition. You go platform down, it feels like a room. Now filtered light comes through, sense of enclosure is increased, and your composition has changed. You go further down and you feel more and more enclosed. So even without touching your feet into water, it feels you're sucked into the well. So you get that. The composition changes, the intensity of light changes, and if you're perceptive, even the temperature starts getting cooler. If you're not walking straight, that's your composition. So again, like thali, same thing is offered to you, but each one has to experience in their own way. Therefore, being there is what matters. If Mr. Biden or Bush wants to come and be part of this, commander should not parachute them down. We'll send the water if they want. But he has to traverse that path and encounter that journey himself. That's what is the true experiential architecture, which is what Akar doesn't bring. That's what is Anubhuti about, And at the end, water is revealed. So water was only an excuse, a nimit, but the whole essence was in the journey. This is engineering. This is where social structure, you can rest in the afternoon. It's too hot, you have to rest, then take your caravan further. It's also the steps that you see in the water. So imagine women having to do these mundane chores. They will have gathered there and they can bitch about their husbands and mothers-in-law and whatever. So it was a kind of social platform to do so, like that. And notions, this is again important. We have two notions applied to the idea of step well. One, Prithvina Petalma jaiye che. You're going to the womb of Mother Earth, and that's where these niches with the symbol of fertility, the goddess. The second one is tripartite division, Patalma jaiye che. That's heaven in the sky, earth in the ground, and water world below ground. That's Patar. So when you're going down, and that's represented by water, the fish, etc. When you started the journey, that was Ganesh right there. And it ended at the fish. So now it reminds you come to the water world. So even notionally, it connects you in both ways. And look and see, 600-year-old structure. And yet, anytime you go, there's garland or diya or kumkum. So it is still lived in. So none of these are fossilized monument. It still stays in people's cultural sequence, psyche, etc. Idea is not to replicate the form or a style or akar. Idea is to understand the principles of its organization. So the first principle is, and that is the dictum of experientially engaging architecture, disparate visual and physical access. You've been told where to go, but line of sight is not the line of movement. You move around, and each encounter informs you of what is coming. That happens, or you can personify in many, including your palace here. That and in most of the folk houses, that there's a spirit wall. So you come, you've been informed of whatever, then you turn, then first courtyard, then next, likewise. Then, so that means there's a layering of spaces, so sequential unfolding. Things are not given at a go, the whole idea. You have to take the plunge and do gradually. For example, that's where the difference in planner or diagrammatic organization versus understanding actually how are you going to encounter in actual being there kind of a sense. For example, we've been all told symmetrical organization about Islamic architecture, but that's in plan. Do they expect you to swim and go to meet Mumtaz or whoever tomb it is? No, it on the contrary suggests that please go on the side, see the same from another point of view. You go to Taj Mahal, you forget about that after the Shah Jahan palace, door, and then you get to go through other things which engages you, and then once again it recalls that. So that idea of sequential unfolding, so that's an engagement. How can architecture keep engaged? Movement therefore becomes the key. It's not the organization or graphic layout in the plan. It is always how you move and constantly perceive. So that is kinetic. This is the one. Yes, we were talking about AI and whatnot. How many hundreds of years ago, you think this was AI? Could this be perceived by the brain? Or if you work on site, even the worker would not miss this. So it's just a matter of the method in which you work, because that's how you perceive and that's how you're building it. So the idea of very first gate, and that kind of gives you the whole sequence that I am a story of 4 minaret and a dome. After that, there is a water, so you don't go further, you go around. You've forgotten about that. That at one point, once again, it brings you into access, and exactly only at that point, you can do that, And then when you go to the stair to go up to the Mazar, it's not like Asiatic Library in Bombay straight path like that. When you're going like that, you go opposite, and as soon as you turn, there is the same kind of a gate idea in which the minaret is framed. So it's a fantastic recall and narrative. Remember, there were minarets. I am there. I'll escort you to Mumtaz. So that's the whole kind of idea. So it's never about akar, and that don't get fancied by that. It's very simple. But apart from this, a kind of a movement sequence, this would not happen. The idea of built, unbuilt. Building is always static, but the moment you integrate nature in terms of light, nature in terms of wind, nature in terms of water, vegetation, people and activity, landform, all are constantly changing, and therefore, you know it very well. Gangor Ghat is very different early morning, afternoon, late evening. We go to Amrai Ghat to enjoy that the most, likewise. And symbol, we're talking about semantics, that akar can mean different things to different one. One swastik we would revere, but the Jew would hate it. So that's cultural conditioning. Sociocultural appropriateness. There's a study done in Japan that said that if the senior executives were relieved of their tie and tuxedo kind of a dressing and were allowed to wear informal, they would feel the same level of comfort with few degree warmer AC temperature. So wrong dressing was the culprit to unduly having to jack up the thing. So if Mr. Mohanlal or people from hot and humid region, if they're just clad with the lungi or the mund and they're bare-chested, are they primitive or they are the Salman Khans of respective places, We knew Gandhi who could veil and unveil, but still respect the modesty. Is that the eternal Gandhi we're looking at, or we want Gandhi to toe a line that what's cool in summer, what's hot in winter, Like this, these are 3 narrow lanes. This one from traditional quarter, actually it's from Indore, happens to be a positive one because there is a direct interface with the life and this. Same one, outcome of a planned bylaw housing that keep a service lane to improve the quality, but the decision to go wrong in cultural understanding is there is a window and not a door. So conveniently we throw all our kitchen muck out of that, and this is the worst environment created by that. Simply turn window to a door and it would be totally transformed. Now it will be a nice backyard and nobody would even talk to commissioner and share this and maintain this. Ahmedabad, this is poor and you have blurred interface with inside and outside. You don't know when street ends and the house starts. Here, 15% open space is kept, but no window to participate, and as a result, this becomes a desolate and eventually encroached space. Too large a space can't even connect to the life. And it's not the money, it's the mindset. On the left, in a slum, such a dense area, and yet at the junction of movement, dignified plinth and the shade gives you a public space. As against Ballard Estate, one of the most expensive real estate. And look at this pipe over a window, that attitude, this backspace, very, very worthy and expensive real estate is relegated. We had answers like Indo or Sharafa Bazaar or whatever, but we have very elaborate for many years. Manek Chowk, urban plaza, paved, early morning cow grazing ground, same in the afternoon is a business district, cars replace the cows, and in the evening, two-legged animal takes over and it's a cow gully. And every day, morning to night, a diurnal metamorphosis of the space. Sustainability, this whole, all sets of Re's, refuse, reduce, recycle, regenerate, restore, reuse. What were the principles? As design, building agent, we are responsible for 42% of energy and very high component of resource consumption as well as pollutants. We think that technology is an answer. No problem, it's helping. But first thing first, if you have 100% glazing, just a glazing, 100% transmission. If you have double glazing and something, 90%. If you have very sophisticated glass, up to 40%. But just have 1 meter awning and it'll already bring down to 25 to 30%. So the problem is not glass. Think about what all, And this happens to be a south-facing building in Ahmedabad, and there is a recorded 3-degree warmer temperature of a footpath outside than the adjoining property. And this used to be, there was a board saying Mayflower, Sunflower. So I thought that this must be biscuit factory. के बाहर के धूप से अंदर सब बिस्किट pop up होते होंगे. Then I realized कि वो तो maternity home है. Perhaps babies are produced faster than the biscuits and this sort of a thing. And this is again a west-facing facade, and it's been there for 20 years. It's been repainted but not removed. And my fear is the guy is in coma since the first electricity bill. Insulation, what are the principles before the fan was there? So that's what you learn from traditional. It's performance, not the romance of past. So if they could manage it with insulative material, both for cold and hot climate, insulation must go with ventilation, because all of us are, however cool we are, 75 kilowatt is the kind of energy we are emitting. And therefore, ventilation must go with it. And that's where we had this tradition of being outdoors. You were sleeping out, you were festivities outside. Jali, a fantastic element of fenestration we forgot. From inside you can see everything out, but outside you don't know anything. It's a cultural privacy. Beautiful aesthetic. Ahmedabad has been recognized by that. Third, it's a louver which does not allow the direct sun and its glare, but allows for the glow of the light. And there is a breeze, this Venturi and Bernoulli principle. Venturi, that it picks up velocity when it goes through a small hole, and Bernoulli, that if you do this, it's warm, it's cool. So all scientific aspects to that, and that's what Mr. Baker did in his architecture. 3-part window, the top one for ventilation, middle one for view, and the lower one for the breeze. And like thali, you could permute and combine. And today you go to Bangalore, 24-degree outside, but yet in a room, because it's a fixed glazing, you have to have an AC to get inside 24, Light, in India, we need ray bands, we need to diffuse light. And there, if May afternoon, because of doubly loaded corridor, if you have to run electricity, that is a crime. This is Ahmedabad, and it's been given UNESCO status. Why? Because of the whole lifestyle, not just one building. So when we say heritage conservation in India, it's not a monument that we preserve. It's the whole lifestyle and way of life, etc., that go with it. The principle, the wisdom. Contrary to belief, this old sector housing has 2.6 FSI, while the new ones we build is 1.8 FSI. Okay, the 11-story structure. The whole idea of vertically projecting, so the first full facade is in the shade, long sides, not exposed to multiple use of space, morning, afternoon, evening, and courtyard, one of the kind of constant DNA from first civilization, visually communicating, environmentally working. What fan does with electricity power is what we used to do with muscle power. That was the swing. So even the accessories and furniture, water harvesting in a decentralized ways into underground tank, and mass production. Like IKEA, you can make and permute and combine. Why mass production has to be banal? This was craft-based production that created every house unique by permutation combination like thali. It was modular bracket column, so each one had identity, and yet there was overall conformity. As I said, that lifestyle is what matters, where swing, as I said, helped you cool. And just as a thumb rule, warmer the place, spicier the palate. So you perspire, and by evaporative cooling, it gives you body comfort. So it's a full package, not one aspect to be replicated. With that as the understanding, very quickly I'll run through different scales of intervention from a small installation to a large settlement, and different approaches. Sustainability is a phenomenon and not a formula. So all different appropriate approaches, each valid for that. So for example, refuse. This was what an industrial chawl, and we tried to illuminate because three sides they are shared, but unlike traditional, they don't have courtyard. So we put kind of a bulb as a lighting, which is way before that Philippines and the MIT experience. It was accidental, but that did not give ventilation. So we addressed the roof and the dormer window, which the local settlement or the NGO could prepare at the cost which usually that they put their corrugated sheet on. And as a result, what you see here is the outcome. There has been a recorded survey done post-installation that minimum of 250 rupees saving in electricity bill per month per house, and minimum of 1500 rupees of increased economic home-based production per house. So it improved their economy, their stress level on eye and therefore health, and poor kids had no excuse now not to do study inside the house. It was no longer dark for them. Reuse. This was the kind of, Gandhi said the whole root cause of untouchability is because you're calling people who are cleaning behind you untouchable. So we must invest in technology where there is scavenging not required. So this was in Gandhi Ashram, and under redevelopment, this was all kind of remaining defunct. So we turned it into an open air theater. And we actually created this Pakhane Pe Khana, a toilet cafe. You can choose your own seats, feel comfortable. And everything that you see in the toilet is reminded of, just to change the mindset with this, that whenever we say toilet, that's the reflex we have. Here to change that's also a positive thing. Gandhi said that I get my best of the thoughts here. Reuse. This is Corbusier's building that we hail, and you are saying that it needs to be preserved. This is how it was. We conserved it and put it to alternative use. Just monument is going to dilapidate again. So sympathetic reuse is always a good idea. So we put it to the first and only city museum depicting different parts of, then this is all through people's participation. So aspects of what represents Ahmedabad from its art, culture, history, community, culture, etc. Reduce. This is usually my reminder to myself. Interiors. Now installation to kind of restoration to interiors. We think that there is no scope for interiors. True, you're not supposed to touch outside, but still same principles can bite. This is an IT office. They are always wanting air conditioning. This one we got the Immersion Cup award for this by simply looking at the electricity bill and whatever simulation. So the idea of open plan office, idea of borrowing the light naturally as far as possible. In fact, we have to diffuse light for the glare. The indoor plantation for change of quality of air, nature inspired detailing, etc. Redefine. This is residence now. This building has been published in 51 beautiful homes twice, etc. But the whole idea is that this is in Vadodara. this residence called Shah Jahan because it's Mr. Shah living there, not from the Mughal dynasty. But father-son kind of a thing. I won't get into detail of the concrete represents the children, the other one there. But the whole same principles, that natural finish is in local material, that's that. Microclimate through vegetation, water, etc. Natural palette of material. Water harvesting and recycle. Even the rich person is not away from those concepts. Even the courtyard is where all that has been harvested. All that massing comes from north, south, east, west. So it's not kind of a big software detailing. It's simple understanding, overhangs, cavity wall, so insulation and yet ventilation. There's no false ceiling in the entire house. It's all the modulation. For example, 8 feet is the typical passage height. But when you sink the floor and when you raise that ceiling in the architectural section, it gives you more than 12 feet. And what is raised is actually a natural bed on the top, So there are ways by which there's a courtyard, which is an extension of a living room, like that. Contemporary translation of a courtyard where you don't want monkey, thief, dust, water, etc. and still maintain the same principle of ventilation and light. No chimney, that's again a marketing gimmick, even for Indian cooking. It's good to know that biryani bani hai aaj, but this skylight. So you have heat, smell, escape out of right there, and you have a nice glow all through the day. Plus there's dynamics of light, whether it's a morning glow inviting you to wake up from the bedroom, or all through the day double-heighted area where the cutout would mean that as the sun moves, its reflection moves. And patronizing the craftsmen. We have a rich tradition of craft, and every project, unless you give patronage, they'll not perform the next generation. So I think it's our obligation to integrate as much that for our work. And even the kind of both digital technologies, etc. going. Respond. This is my everyday's practice at home. Building, responding to all four sides. Why the plan or the elevation has to be symmetrical? Sun is not the same. So as you can see, each orientation has a different resolution. Southwest, which is good for breeze but bad for sun, so it's vertical lower with plants. This is north, it's very effective, so it's a contemporary jali in terms of crossword puzzle because it related to the owner in particular way. And the eastern side, which again allows you to do that. While the jali on the south, as in the middle, not only takes clue from the local monuments, but it's smaller so that, the kind of intensity with which it comes in, and that's what it gives you from within. This is another standalone building, and again, not only it's not for inlay's sake, but even on a 7th floor, the plantation and vegetation like this, they don't have a real board to say this is that, but everybody passing by has known it from the vegetation on each floor. Recycle. This was 2,600 metric ton of waste in Ahmedabad. We researched for 3 years and converted that into this kind of a building component, and with participation of the people. For example, thin micron bags, you braid it like a choti and it becomes a rope as a versatile element. Fly ash brick, which is cheaper and stronger than the conventional brick. So always maintain the economic threshold and performance. When you maintain that, then client has no other problem. And yes, aesthetics is your prerogative. So it is not a dukhi architecture. This has given me more awards for design, not just for this concern. Wooden crate. Wood is very expensive, but crate being brittle is only used for burning. Like she said that those doors were to be burned. So we change the detailing. You don't hammer the glass. So just put the beading and it can be, this was a local carpenter who did that. The widows from the settlement with the thumb pressure filled this, once. Nobody gives you 5 paisa for this, even though high tradition of recycling. So those ones were filled up, they earn few livelihoods, singing bhajan at home, they could do that, so it was not a big labor, and they could convert that into 2.5 rupee brick in the wall. Ahmedabad is a very dry city, but enough liquor bottles can be found. You just have to, in Google, look for police stations. So this is the jali that we came up with. The west side, no overhang can cut down that low sun. So instead, if you have a tainted glass, it can give you that performance. So this is that same. So it became a kind of collage of what all recycling can be done. This is below neutral zone as a filler slab, glass bottles or any inert, and even digital waste. This was the fourth or fifth extension to the place. And each time we added a new palette, like rack sandwich, scrap as an interactive door, even the digital waste as a paneling here. All wrappers which are neither paper nor plastic, they become now a translucent paneling. Oil tin opened up to become door, louvers, ventilators, recycle from the construction side of the other, paver block made out of that, cheaper, more beautiful than the other. And that's how multiple use of the space also. Morning it's a school, afternoon it's a digital literacy program to give the employment to the young ladies in the settlement, and creche, the local ayahs become the nannies to look after the toddler when both parents go out for labor, and entire place becomes a community center. Reinterpret, we had enough. This was to Blagers Institute, and whenever you come to Ahmedabad, you're welcome to this. Basic principles, there's no electricity or no, this whole huge campus was running only by 18,000 rupee bill. Electricity bill, as good Ahmedabad is my measure, that how much are we doing with the building or not. So that idea of checkered board plan, that idea of, soil as a regenerative resource, so no import or export of soil. It's just digging from there and putting somewhere. So the cut and fill idea, cavity wall, courtyard, and upper level coming out, southwest is tall, northeast is sunken, interactive flooring, a lot of value-based. And where it is sunken, the daytime activity, it becomes an earth burning. So it keeps it cool and becomes, Paresh Rawal had performed there. And there's no space which is large enough indoors to hold 150 people, but 300 to 1,000 people have been accommodated here like this. So again, fetish to use outdoors or not, art can go with it, amphitheater, all other elements that nature is also a reproductive resource. Simple translation of Haveli upper floor project out. So when sun is in the overhead, it casts the shadow. And then when it goes low, the next building starts taking over. You can naturally extend onto the terrace. Nobody goes on the last terrace. But if there is an activity, barrier-free environment, sharing idea, water harvesting, 22 lakh of liter of water is harvested, no drop of water goes out, and they give you these beautiful spaces even to meditate. Now from Safai, they are trying to talk about your internal Safai, and it's been beautifully grown over time. Restore, now coming to settlement, this is post-earthquake redevelopment. That was the kind of devastation 26 January 2001. Thanks to you all who participated and very generously gifted and supported. But the people there had created in a harsh climate their environment, which was full of the self-esteem. And you can see that culture, craft, art and architecture were so intertwined. I won't get into detail, but all these rendered it timeless and structurally stable against the earthquake, even though created in mud. That was because that, they over time had seen the shocks and therefore they tried to perfect. That's one reason why you appreciate traditional architecture, that the pressure or the forces of the place have been not only addressed, acknowledged, but perfected over time. So you see, nothing happened to that, but dekha dekhi, Virat Kai, compressive strength, material, objects have all given way. And it's fluke 1, fluke 2, fluke 3, many flukes to be fluke. So what we did is that to my right is the sponsor, to my left is the whole village. I have maintained and sustained my ponds but left my hair. So we are trying to do this interactive with the kind of kit. So first we played an architect and said, look, this is how organic your settlement. We had actually mapped and all that. But they said, भाई आप पूछना तो नहीं चाहते, आपने आर्किटेक्चर किया है पर ये हमें जमेगा नहीं, मे भी कुछ लेक्चर नहीं लिया आपने. So he said, okay, let's play a game. There's a name written and you see who is your neighbor, how do you want to organize. So they said more or less linear cluster. Then our ego was hurt. So we came in and said कि यार वो राम जी का मंदिर होगा तो बेटी की शादी में काम में आएगा, बाद नवरात्रि में आएगा. तो बोले हाँ थोड़े क्लास तो अटेंड किए, हम एक्सेप्ट करेंगे. सो लाइकवाइज वी अराइव्ड कॉमनली at one layout that we translated into a proper diagram with AutoCAD. We took the kit to the site so they know the orientation correctly, but that would not give an idea of a total one-to-one scale. So they thought we come from Ahmedabad, Chingus log, itni badi jagah hai, hum itna hi dete hain. It was 1.5 times the largest plot that they had. Still we were Ahmedabadi Kanjus. So till we put those 4 corners sort of sticks, then they said, ठीक है अभी नर्मदा का पानी आया लगता है चलेगा हमें. So that gave the sense of belonging and comprehension. And while we were trying to do this, they had already started bringing their stuff from the old place to here, which meant their comprehension and acceptance of what was happening. And 10 youth from the village, they knew how to engineer this soil with fiber and all that. So they were earning livelihood to do their own house. They were doing their own house, so they would do as they want, most appropriate. Youngest of the family learned from the traditional wisdom of the oldest. So this traditional know-how goes on to the coming 2 generation. Like this 12-year-old boy knows how to do this complicated roof. We have even hired them for other projects. So that's a skill level that has also helped them for economy. And this is 75 rupees square foot construction, which has beautiful interiors. Mr. Amitabh Bachchan asked you to have this Khushbu of Gujarat. It's actually in Sharadotsav. They all come there. And this is 75 rupees as 1/5 of the government stipulated cost. So it's cheap, it's appropriate even for the hotbed, and it doesn't say sorry for what has happened. It takes revenge that we can create beautiful environment. The craft was also promoted with the interface of a designer. Thank you. But and this is not a decor. This is white clay and mirror, so it magnifies the small window light. We don't want to be gloomy, but for harsh climate, you don't want big kind of window. So this is the sort of thing, and it represents their culture and everything, the proud position, and some amenities were put in, even intermediate technology. So tradition doesn't mean keep them in the kind of same box. For example, they have these wood and charcoal to burn, so the quality of air indoors is bad. So the smokeless stove did wonders, and they overnight accepted that solar panel is not a joke, but at least in a way. And from where the soil was dredged, it became a natural reservoir, and with only 3 inches of rainfall, that in the desert you have water, and with water they started agriculture. So the whole ecology of the place changed. And with culture, water, always the culture flourishes. It's all desert where drought was the norm. And so the total we won the United Nations citation for this, and we were asked after 10 years, they were writing a chapter which is still there, to have honest experience about failures and successes. We also went with an open mind, and we're happy to see that they had actually grown onto this. And you can see tradition and modernity is only in our mind 2 brackets. They could continue doing what they do, and still there's no hesitation adapting to what you call modern. We bracket them, If Mr. Iyer from South has this, we think he's traditional and torn jeans, but he doesn't know how to speak any other language well, and we think he's modern. So I think that's our mindset. 2 are never far apart, and that's how we have lived all along. The regenerate, this is just to say that there are different concepts for different, and all of them represent sustainability in many ways, and different scales from installation to now I'm going highbrow memorial. This is for Cadila Pharma at Dholka, and only 5 elements have created architecture. I won't get into detail, but this is a less than 2-minute video I'd like you to enjoy. Can we have a sound? It's just a music. This is a drone view, not the simulation. That is the point where he was cremated, the founder of this, pharmacy. So there is a Akhand Jyot, there is a calm water, there is a kund-like, place. You just sit and 52 fountains which go 20 feet. So you have a sound value of that gives you spatiality. From a distance, you see the sparkling top. Then, of course, everything is ramp. There is a layer to that. So, like Pradakshina of temple, here are Bhagavad Gita's. He died at the age of 87. So, 87 obelisks. So, you see that Adhyay 10 and 22nd shlok. Likewise, there is an artwork of the artist, is a bronze plate below, in between 4 language translation, and then Pratikatmak. And then another outer ring is more casual, meandering walk. All that landscape has been done from zero. So and right outside is a jungle we created jungle. So idea was nature to man-made, because he created himself out of nothing. So all that analogy, philosophy, some students were asking, how do you develop concept? Concept is not about form, triangle, this. There is a reference to that how do you create geometry and whatnot versus, so for man-madeness. So that's the kind of way it has all come about. It's all factory water to use, no drop of water goes out. Integration of art and craft. This is the, Dr. Mohapatra from Bhubaneswar, who got Padma Vibhushan for his art, giving you the idea of cyclic time as Dashavtar. And then this, from Jaipur, Kasliwal, we hired him for these mudras in marble, open air theater. So, and that is a created jungle at the back, This is only some 4 or 5 years of this, and all that with Sri Yantra is a reference to what it could connote to him, etc. So that's how the memorial. So again, just 5 elements of nature creating the space, which we often forget. We only think of column, beam, wall, water, like that, So in other words, glamour and beauty both attract our attention. But glamour like fashion fades away. I see these young ladies beginning to wear bell bottom and they think we are fashionable and it's our time. Look, Amitabh Bachchan's film of 80s, and you won't believe, was very thin, and I wore 44-inch flare, and my leg never went out of that flare, when I walked. So when you beat that, tell me that you are more fashionable. So my son now can't accuse me that daddy aap outdated ho gaye, because now my Ahmedabadi instinct says that I was looking like a fool, and itna sara kapda koi waste karta hai, 2 pant ban jate hai, narrow karo to, So if I choose to wear narrow, I'm not outdated. I've done that, been there, but now I find what is sensible for me. So, आजकल fog चल रहा है. Actually, I googled, and some time back there was a perfume called Goff. So fog को Goff को fog बना दिया, फिर से कुछ और आ जाएगा. So that is not an indication of what. What is more important is this. So beauty is eternal, timeless, and integral. So that's where is the glamour, but the anubhuti is the eternal one that you are. So whether it's AI or your model, there's no competition of tools or debate ever. It's what you are able to create and how it connects to human being and how it responds to the planet is what is important. I'll run through this for the younger friends here. A grandpa was asked by grandson, "How old are you?" And grandfather replies, "Son, I was born before television, penicillin, polio shots, frozen food, Xerox, contact lenses, frisbees, credit card, laser beams, ballpoint pens, pantyhose, air conditioner, dishwashers, and men hadn't yet walked onto the moon. Your grandmother and I got married first and then lived together. Every family had a father and a mother. We were before computer dating, dual careers, daycare center, and group therapy. Our lives were governed by 10 commandments, good judgment, and common sense. We thought fast food was what people ate during the fasting days. We never heard of FM radios, tape decks, CDs, electric typewriters, yogurts, or guys wearing earrings. We listened to the news and president's speeches on our radios. In our time, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and instant coffee were unheard of. In my day, Coke was a cold drink, pot was something your mother cooked in, rock music was the grandmother's lullaby, aides were helpers in principal's office, cheap meant a piece of wood, hardware was found in a hardware store, and software wasn't even a word. And we were the last generation to actually believe that lady needed a husband to have a baby. No wonder people call us old and confused and say there is a generation gap. Now, All those at the back must be thinking this was once upon a time, there were dinosaurs, the men were rubbing stone to ignite fire. How can you live without Pizza Hut, instant coffee, etc.? Let's not fool ourselves that as human being, we have evolved any differently. Forget this time frame, but for a great grandfather. What is changed is like your I-12 to I-16. You have not become smarter. On the contrary, you don't remember as many phone numbers anymore now, especially your wives. So you must look at this. You think you belong there, we were also there. Okay? Has things really changed in essence? Yes, what has changed is the fashion. I used to be very ashamed of this. Now I find it fashionable, Maybe I should remove this also. There was a time you had to put and throw kid into the house ke thoda pad le. And now you have to throw him out ke thoda khel le, We used to chain a dog. Now we chain ourselves wherever there is a charger. One technology. So again, point about technology, what way does it improve the quality of life? That's the ultimate goal of any technology, any time. There was one technology that brought people from whole world together. Phone aaya, uncle ka phone aaya, and whole family was together. Mujhe baat karni, mujhe sunne do. Now on the same dining table, we are on different planets. Okay. We had our own WhatsApp, we had our own CCTV, and we had our own surfing. Okay. So the point is, you are in a great profession. We can make a difference in the lives of people. We can empower through design to improve the quality of life. That's the goal. No akar, no nothing. And to do that, I believe that rather than giving Gandhian currency the value, we might want to make Gandhian value itself the currency. In India, we are lucky to have a repository of wisdom for thousands of years. So my mantra to leave behind is inspire from yesterday and aspire for tomorrow. Inspire from yesterday is not turning the clock backward, but if A to Z is invented, you can go to alpha, beta, gamma rather than again repeating from P onward something, okay? So welcome to traverse in the immensity of time and space, of notion and reality of a great city called Udaipur and fantastic country called India. Thank you very much for your patient listening. And